Traditional history suggests civilization began exclusively in the flat floodplains of Babylon and Egypt. We are often told progress flowed from those fertile banks, but recent evidence indicates a different origin for the technology that defined the era. While the empires of the plains were major consumers of metal, the Zagros Mountains functioned as a sophisticated primary engine of Bronze Age production and innovation. Before we examine how a coordinated alliance emerged from these heights to resist the world's first superpowers, subscribe to the channel for more hidden history. These excavation pits contain the remains of the Gutians, the Lullubi, the Kassites, and the Hurrians. These groups are the direct ancestors of modern Kurds, yet their role in technical history is often overlooked by scholars focused on the lowlands. Look at the anatomy and posture of the figures on this bronze axe head. The level of detail in the casting reveals a mastery of metallurgy that predates similar sophistication found in the lowland cities. The tendency to overlook these mountain innovators stems from a bias towards centralized, urbanized empires. Because these tribes didn't build the sprawling monuments found in the plains, their technological contributions were largely written out of the narrative. Geography dictates the political possibilities of a society. The physical landscape of the Middle East created two completely different ways of organizing human power. This ziggurat stands on the vast flat plains of Mesopotamia. In this environment, a single ruler could march an army in any direction without encountering a natural obstacle, allowing for the rapid concentration of absolute centralized power. Compare those plains to the rugged vertical landscape of the Zagros Range. These deep valleys and high ridges served as natural, unbreachable fortresses. The sheer difficulty of the terrain made it nearly impossible for a single central authority to exert control over every independent pocket. This map illustrates the divide. While the plains allow for expansion, the Zagros is naturally partitioned into separate, walled-off valleys. This forced the ancestors of the Kurds to develop as independent, self-governing tribal units. If an outside force or an ambitious leader tried to impose their will, the tribes simply moved higher into the crags where traditional armies couldn't operate. The flat ground produced tyrants and empires. The mountains produced a culture defined by autonomy and a stubborn resistance to central authority. This independent way of life was eventually threatened by the Assyrian war machine, the most disciplined and lethal military force of the ancient world. This battle relief documents their methods. The Assyrians utilized systemic violence to maintain their empire, specializing in the total destruction of cities and the plunder of mountain resources like horses and bronze. Initially, the mountain tribes met this threat with individual bravery. Each valley fought its own desperate battle, relying on the vertical terrain and their own skill with metal weapons to hold the line. But bravery wasn't enough against organized mass numbers. The Assyrians used their centralized logistics to isolate and extinguish individual valleys one by one, turning the natural walls of the mountains into traps. The tribes faced a stark choice: maintain their absolute isolation and be systematically destroyed, or rethink their entire political structure to ensure survival. Survival required a radical shift. Tribes that had spent generations guarding their own valleys had to surrender a portion of their autonomy to create a shared command structure. This political innovation saw disparate groups formally linking together. They synchronized their defenses, creating a unified front that spanned the entire mountain range. By combining this new unity with their advanced knowledge of bronze weaponry, they were able to mount a massive, coordinated counteroffensive that the Assyrian military was not prepared to face. This unified network represents a confederation, an alliance where independent states coordinate as a single force. It was a sophisticated response to the threat of absolute tyranny. When the Assyrian army attempted to penetrate the mountains, they weren't hitting isolated pockets. They were striking a solid wall of coordinated resistance that absorbed their momentum and pushed them back into the plains. This stone stela records the victory. It shows leaders and warriors ascending the heights, having successfully defended their territory. This proved that a coordinated alliance of free groups could dismantle even the most powerful centralized military machine. The Zagros was more than a barrier. It was a space that forced the ancestors of the Kurds to develop both high-level metallurgy and the strategic framework of a confederation. In our next video, we'll analyze Gutian genetics and the specific smelting techniques used to create their legendary weapons. Look at the sweeping plains of ancient Mesopotamia. History remembers this sun-baked expanse as the home of the most feared military empires on Earth. But these territories held a fatal geographic flaw: an absolute lack of trees and coal. Creating advanced Bronze Age metal requires perfectly melting copper and tin, a process that demands an immense, sustained source of thermal energy. This chart compares the fuel available in the plains to the energy required for metallurgy. You cannot forge a bronze sword by burning desert scrub brush. You need massive tonnage of raw, dense fuel to forge even a single weapon. Because of this energy deficit, mass-producing advanced weapons in the great cities of Babylon and Assyria was mathematically and physically impossible. The true factory of the ancient world was hidden high up in the treacherous peaks of the Zagros Mountains. The tribes controlling this high-altitude territory, the Kassites, Gutians, and Lullubi, the direct ancestors of the Kurds, held the exact resources the plains lacked. Their elevation gave them exclusive access to dense ancient forests, rich coal veins, and pure copper and tin. While the Mesopotamians marched with massive armies, the Zagros tribes held the ultimate technological monopoly of the ancient world. Archaeological excavations across the Zagros region have uncovered the exact mechanics of this monopoly: advanced smelting furnaces equipped with complex forced air bellows systems. This diagram demonstrates the temperatures these engineers achieved. They designed their forced air systems to blow past the thermal limits of a standard wood fire, locking the heat in at exactly 1085 degrees Celsius. Sustaining that extreme heat allowed them to seamlessly fuse copper and tin into a revolutionary alloy, exponentially harder and sharper than anything previously forged. These mountain tribes transformed a hazardous chemical reaction into a systematic, repeatable manufacturing process. This mastery of metal eventually moved beyond brutal weaponry. Today, if you walk into the Louvre in Paris, some of the museum's most prized ancient artifacts originated from these exact Zagros forges. This image shows a collection known as the Luristan Bronzes. Notice how bizarre and otherworldly the designs are compared to standard ancient tools. Looking closely, you can see intricate, abstract animal figures and mythological human-animal hybrids, heavily stylized right into the metalwork. When Pablo Picasso examined these artifacts, he was absolutely shocked. He noted that these ancient artisans had discovered surrealism and modern art thousands of years before he did. This schematic details the lost wax casting technique they used to create these complex, hollow shapes. An artist sculpts wax, encases it in clay, melts the wax away, and fills that precise negative space with molten metal, a method with absolutely zero margin for error. Rather than simple tools, these artifacts served as ritual objects, physically linking the artisan to the mountain spirits and guardians they believed protected the range. This mastery of extreme heat dictated the balance of power across the entire Middle East. This artifact is a piece of high-tech chariot gear. The sprawling empires of the plains had to pay heavy tribute just to purchase tools like this from the Zagros artisans. Look at this stone relief showing heavily armed Mesopotamian soldiers. Whenever these massive armies tried to push into the mountains, the Kurdish ancestors used their superior locally forged weapons to continually repel them. By controlling the specialized supply of chariot gear and weaponry, these mountain clans operated as the premier engineers and arms dealers of the ancient world. This knowledge, a sort of ancient metal code, survived through a continuous line of genetic and cultural heritage. This royal rock carving shows how the specific geometric designs and forging techniques of early Zagros axes evolved directly into the iconic weaponry used later by the Medes and Sassanid empires. Even the surrealist motifs from those early bronzes survive today, meticulously woven into modern Kurdish carpets and traditional crafts. This lineage of metalworkers provided the technological foundation that allowed the Zagros tribes to defend their independence and influence the rise of neighboring empires. We uncover a new historical truth like this every week on Kurdishpedia. If you want to help us reveal more hidden facts about history's first master metallurgists, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. Until next time.